Welcome to the Summers Woodworking Show. It's season 4, episode 15. Tonight we're going to talk about business advice from Todd Clippinger over at the American Craftsman Workshop. And we're going to start with roll call, and I'll start on my left. Braxton, you want to tell people who you are and where they can find you and what kind of work you do?
Yeah, my name's Braxton Northland. You can find me on YouTube under my name, Braxton Northland. And I do all kinds of stuff, woodwork, metalwork, really into turning, tons of stuff like that. Thanks for having me, Brian.
All right, thanks for being on here tonight. Next is Chris Ahern.
Hey guys, Chris Ahern here from the Old Cranky Workshop. You can find me on Facebook at the Old Cranky Workshop and now on YouTube at the Old Cranky Workshop. Finally get it up and running. It took a while. It was a stupid mistake I was making, but it's working. So I'm going to start transferring my videos over there as soon as I get a chance to sit down and spend a couple hours doing it. So,
sounds good. What kind of woodworking you do?
A little bit of everything, from furniture for the house, some woodworking toys. I seem I'm constantly building something for a contest these days. And some home renovations. So a little bit of everything.
All right, sounds good, man. Next, we got James.
Hey, y'all. I'm James Wright. Wood by Wright on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever else is Wood by Wright as well. I do a lot of hand tool woodworking. Actually, I don't have any power tools at all, so it's all done by hand.
Cool. And next we have Jerry Brown. Come on, Jerry. There we go. Well, we had him. Well, we'll get back to you, Jerry. Okay? We'll do you after Mike. How about you, Mike?
Mike Mertzke from Mertzke Custom Woodworking. You can find all the links to all my social media and such on mertzkecustomwoodworking.com. Pretty much most active on Facebook and Instagram.
All right. What kind of woodworking you do?
Anything and everything.
Anything and everything. You turn?
Yep.
All right. I didn't know that. I knew you did everything else. That's awesome.
Just need more time. That's the only thing I'm missing.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay, Jerry. You got it going on? Nope. Okay, we'll go on with Russ.
Okay. Russ Meadows here from Rusty Nails Wood Shop. You can find me on that, on Instagram and on Facebook. And if you can't find me there, you'll find me looking for the Old Cranky Workshop.
Now, don't get mad, but we're going to move your channel from Rusty Nails to Rusty CNC.
I'm going to lose people. Don't do it.
All right, Russ. It sounds good, man. Jerry, you got it going? Okay. Henry, you got your ears on? I don't think he's in yet. Okay, Todd, you want to tell people who you are?
My name's Todd Clippinger, and I'm in the American Craftsman Workshop. I'm a professional woodworker, building furniture and built-ins and furnishings for clients. And I'm a juried artist, woodworking artist, and I'm in Billings, Montana.
You wrote some articles, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a little bit a while ago, but I've been published in Wood Magazine a few times, and I've been in some different podcasts and stuff. So Been in the most recent one actually was MakerCast. It just came out today.
Oh yeah, you was on MakerCast?
Yeah.
Man, everybody's stealing my people. Yeah, all right. Sounds good, man. I don't know if we got Henry or Jerry going. Jerry, you got...
I like Braxton. He's out. He's working. The man does not stop.
I told him, I says, hey, I don't care if you're working, just participate.
I'm trying to finish up a commission piece right now, so gotta pay the bills, you know. But I'm still listening. So.
All righty.
That's pretty
Okay.
cool. He's got the earpiece in.
All right, Jerry.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Uh-huh.
That I didn't break it. Okay, Jerry with Polly Wants a Crafter. Polly Wants a Crafter everywhere around Facebook, YouTube, under Jerry Brown. And then that's it. I do everything.
All right.
Woodworking.
Sounds good. Okay, Todd, since you're the man of the hour, what are we going to talk about tonight?
There's like 10 people here. Why am I the man of the hour? Actually, I'm excited to see all these guys here.
Yeah, these guys are my homies, man.
Well, what do you want to, if we want to talk about woodworking business, how do you want to, is there a certain angle you guys want to talk about?
Start from, you know, like getting your license, workman's comp, stuff like that. Some people probably just getting into starting their business. They don't know the ropes yet. Some of us already know the ropes, but can give some advice to other people that are trying to start. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to cover, so just dive in.
Sure. All right. Yeah, actually, in Montana, it's pretty easy to start a business. Basically, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm registered as a contractor. I'm actually legally registered as a contractor here in Montana. So what I did was I went to the city, my city here in Billings, and I filed for a business license, which they just pass those out. You write them a check and you get one printed up.
Like what, $25?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think of 55 here in Billings.
Wow.
But anyways, yeah. You know, so probably it's going to vary from city to city and state to state, but basically with the city here in Billings, it's $55, so you're probably going to be less than 100 anyways. And also I filed with the state. So I filed, I actually am an exempt contractor, an exempt business, meaning I don't have to pay workman's comp, but I can change that at any time too. But that means also as a registered business, I can hire other guys as long as they have their own paperwork, and I cannot hire them as employees. I have to hire them as subcontractors, and then if I hire them as subcontractors, I also can't treat them as employees. They have to be able to work at their own free will on the hours that they want, basically. Which usually coincides with ours anyways, or, you know, if you're working on somebody's place and, or working here in the shop even. But then I have to provide, you know, I'm going to have to provide proof to the state whenever I file my taxes that everybody that I've hired had their own paperwork. So, you know, one way too that you can get around some of that stuff is, and not saying get around it in a bad way, but in a legal way, is if I wanted to hire somebody on, I actually could use a payroll service, and they take care of like all the business end, and then they just tack on top. So if I want to hire somebody, you know, for $15 an hour, then they just tack on a few extra bucks on top of that. It pays all the taxes, and it takes care of workman's comp and everything. It keeps it legal, which is I keep everything above board.
You done it right. When I was doing my flooring business, I went in as, you know, self-employed.
Yep.
I paid $25 for a business license, and then I had to get workman's comp, which cost like $300 just for myself. And then I had to get liability insurance. which I can't remember how much that cost. And then
You can buy a car, a nice car for what it costs now.
yes, and now if I was to work in businesses such like banks, schools, anything government, pretty much, I had to be bonded. Otherwise, I could not touch anything on that floor. Then you have to go by OSHA and all that, be regulated. Otherwise, they won't let you in the business or anything of the sort. So it's a lot of money to get started in that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
I
it
like
is.
the exempt part because you also get a tax break.
Well, yeah, because I'm not paying workman's comp, but also if you get hurt, you literally can draw on that workman's comp.
Yeah.
So it's just another form of insurance. Is it kind of what it ends up being? But you're right.
Don't you get like a tax break when you go and get supplies? Because you don't have to pay taxes on it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the thing is, in Montana, we don't have sales tax anyways. And when I work out of state, I pay all the taxes on the front end because you still have to pay those anyways. And now a lot of people, I want to clarify this, kind of bring this, make this clear. People that are watching might think, well, Todd, you guys are talking, and Brian, you guys are talking about being a contractor. But the fact is, as a woodworker, you might start getting jobs. You might start being asked to do jobs. And the thing is, for clients, and technically you should be registered and, be a legal business. And even if you're woodworking and you're working on somebody, let's say you have there's a nice niche for repairing cabinets, because I see broken down cabinet drawers and doors all the time in my business. So if you even were just focusing on doing built-ins and stuff, if you're exchanging money for a service and providing a product, then you're operating as a business. And so these things still apply. But you also, you don't have to necessarily set up an LLC. You can still function legally and just fine as a DBA, doing business as. But technically, you should still be have a business license with your local town and be registered with the state.
Exactly. And I always like to carry liability. That way, if anything breaks and they get hurt on it, they can't come back and, well, they'll come back and sue you, but it ain't going to come out of your pocket.
Right, exactly.
Insurance takes care of that.
And that's the big thing too is my liability insurance, costs me about $5,200 a year is pretty average. And so basically, 52 weeks in a year. I mean, it's a lot of money. Yeah. So anyways, the thing of it is, when you think, well, I don't need it. And then like my wife had a cafe and the contractors were doing some work upstairs and a brad nail went through the wall and punctured a water line, and nobody knew it because that was on Friday, and my wife closed down and it started leaking over the weekend. And when she came in, there was massive damage done, and their insurance kicked in to cover that. So if you're doing a simple project and you're shooting brad nails or finish nails in somebody's house to do a very simple install, and you hit a wire or you hit a water line, it could cause a lot of damage, and you'll want that liability insurance.
We got a question here, Todd. It's from Gerald. He goes, can you discuss the pros and cons of having business in your residence?
The pro of it is I walk 30 feet out of my house into my shop and start working. The con of it is it's always here. It's been beneficial to me. I get to deduct the square footage that my office space takes up, and I get to deduct my shop space legally, and on my taxes you get that deduction. You're gonna, if you're renting somewhere else, that's going to be tax deductible too anyways. But at least out of my own place, I can deduct that. But the big thing is, yes, I can work anytime, but also, that's a pro. and it means you work all the time, which is a con. But when you have your own business, you do tend to work a lot more than if you're working for somebody else. But the motivation's different. But I find it to be of great advantage to have my shop where I live. It works out best for me that way. Because, you know,
you don't got the commute going back and forth to the business.
Right. You know, I'll tell you where it actually comes in the most handy. Maybe I'm working on building some built-ins. I'm constructing built-ins for somebody, and I hit the point where I'm doing finish. Well, I'm shooting lacquer, so turnaround on it's fairly quick. But even if it was, you know, let's say it was polyurethane, okay, for some of you guys, if you're doing waterborne or oil-based polyurethane or something, and you know that next coat's going to be ready to go on at 10 o'clock at night. If I had to drive 3 to 5 miles to a shop, it'd be really tough to get up and go, well, it's 10 o'clock. I should be able to put that next coat on. And I'd have to go drive to the shop after I came home, knowing I'm going to have a lot of time before that coat's ready to redo. But
Not me, I'd say out tomorrow.
Right. Here in the shop, I could go in the house, have dinner, maybe watch some TV well, I don't watch a lot of TV, but the point is, you know, I can take care of other stuff, and then I will just walk back out here at any time. And I've made several trips to get things finished overnight. I've made several trips out to the shop, spray some coats, go back in the house, and come back out, you know, a little bit later, spray some more, go back in the house, and been able to do that all night long. So that for me, that's probably been one of the biggest benefits. And then also security. I live where my shop is, and we have dogs, and I think that also helps keep me from getting, you know, ripped off.
Exactly. Yeah, I was always worried about having my tools somewhere else because I can't sleep at night worrying if they're going to be stolen or not.
Right. So there certainly are. Now, a buddy of mine, he's been on my Instagram recently, Mick Smith. I've kind of mentored him, and he just moved to a bigger two-car garage, and set up shop a couple miles from his house. And for him, it works out better. Not only is the space bigger, but the big benefit for him was he found that he actually, when he's away from home, when his shop's at home, he said he got less work done. It was harder for him to focus, and there were too many distractions. Once he removed his workspace from home, he goes down to the shop, he focuses on his work, he gets more done because he's more focused on his work when he does, you know, go down to the shop, and then he leaves, and he's happy to leave it. So, you know, it's going to work differently for different people. The way my mindset is and the way it works for me may be different than for somebody else. But you just got to understand which is going to work best for you.
Exactly. I got another question. Homeowners insurance versus business insurance.
Your homeowner's insurance will not cover a single thing of your business, period. If you're taking money and you got a business license and they find that out and your shop burns down, they're not paying for any, they will not pay for my shop. Homeowner's insurance won't pay for my shop building, my anything in the shop, and all these are compartmentalized. Okay, when you get insurance, your insurance is all separate. To cover the building is one component. To cover the tools inside the building is a separate component. To cover the tools in my van, that's another coverage. To cover my van, that's separate. So what they do is they take all these little components and put them together, and that makes up your business insurance. But your homeowner's insurance will not cover your business, period.
Yeah, exactly.
And typically homeowners insurance will only cover up to a certain amount of tools. So if you have a massive amount of tools and your homeowner's insurance, you know, you have a fire and you lose all those tools, your homeowner's insurance, you may find, only covers a little bit. Like if you had a few tools just to do a couple small things on your house. And so what that means is your homeowner's insurance will cover the tools if you're not operating as a business, but you need to buy more coverage to make sure that all those tools are fully covered. They might cover only like $3,000 or something at the most. So you need to check into that. Anybody else out there? Any of you guys? I'm not here by myself, am I? Where there's a whole party here.
And, you know, and one of the things I was going to kind of chime in on too is a good starting point for people who are thinking about starting a business or not. They're hobbyists and kind of on that verge, wondering, the IRS on their, if you Google on the IRS's, search on the IRS's website, they actually have a page, and if you just Google hobby versus small business, they have a list, and I think it's like 10 questions that you basically ask yourself, and kind of to gauge where you're at. You know, the IRS is okay with hobbyists doing a couple projects on the side,
Right.
but it'll really give you kind of an accurate mark on, okay, yeah, I'm not a business. Because at the end of the day, if you're a hobbyist, you can't count, you know, tax deductions on square footage of your shop, all that stuff like that. And the IRS understands that. But it's a good place, and I always, anytime anyone asks me about that, I always send them that, because it's very clear cut. And I think it's 10 questions that kind of, it's pretty clear cut on, you know, are you a hobbyist or are you a small business?
Yeah, I've asked them in years past that how do you determine whether it's a business or just a hobby? And their response to me was, if you're in business for 5 years, say if you think you're a hobbyist, but you've been doing it for 5 years, and if you make a profit in 3 out of those 5 years, they consider you a business, and you better be paying your taxes.
And that's one of the stuff that's on that page. You know, the IRS averages that most businesses will lose money in the first 3 to 5 years of business.
Exactly.
And they're okay. But if all of a sudden, if you're showing a loss on your taxes for 10 years, they're going to come back and say, hey, you're claiming all these deductions. You're not a business. You're a hobbyist.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, that's what they've told. That's what they told me too.
And they might assign you some homework to take some classes with the Small Business Administration.
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point, Mike. I hadn't even I'll have to start referring people over to that, because I get a lot of questions, you know, a lot of guys that want to go pro, and I get, you know, typically they're at the point where they're really thinking about going pro, so they know that they need to set up legally. But there is some leeway there where you can get away with doing a lot of stuff. So I guess what's nice is we're kind of addressing both sides of that fine line too, because some people will work right up to that, and some will want to cross over.
And I think some people, if they were really honest with themselves, some people are like, oh no, I'm just a hobbyist trying to make a little extra side money. But they have a long record of, you know, making some profit, you know, off of that, where, you know. But at the same time, I've seen from the slip side that people wanted to be this, you know, enterprise of a business when, you know, if they were being honest with themselves, you know, where they were at kind of at that time was probably more the hobbyist.
Well, you know, and what's interesting too, because when a lot of guys are doing it and they start gaining momentum, and seems like they're making money. Well, it's kind of like making money when you're a teenager living at home, because you don't have all the true overhead, because the amount of money that you need to charge as a hobbyist, those numbers don't work once you become a full-blown legal business, because actually it seems like where most of my money goes, my biggest expenses almost seem to be taxes and insurance. And yeah. I can't work without insurance, and I got to pay taxes, and all of a sudden I'm in a whole different zone. And then of course you have to charge at a certain rate, because the car or the little truck you were driving around, if you're a legal business operating full-time as a business, you need to buy a big truck or van. And none of that. And then you also have to have, you know, you realize, hey, now all of a sudden if I'm going to make a living off this, for it to be truly sustainable, then you got to start buying bigger, faster machines to produce faster. And the feeling of you're making money when you're operating as a hobbyist and semi-pro, that whole thing changes once you become full-time pro, because in order to make a living, the numbers completely change on you. I guess I don't know if anybody else got some thoughts on that.
Well, that was a question I was having when we first started this subject. you're talking about the insurance and the taxes and stuff like that. And I kind of, just in my mind, wanted to know what the difference was, say, in price between what a hobbyist charges for a specific item and what a professional would. And like in your case, how much difference is there actually in that between the two?
That's a pretty good question, you know, because as a business, I basically have to charge, I figured out I have to charge $50 an hour as a legitimate business. And that sounds like, oh man, that is just outrageous. You must think an awful lot of yourself. You know, I catch that. and the thing is, as a legitimate contractor, you know, and the thing is, when I say contractor, don't think that I'm tearing out kitchens all the time. I actually make a good bit of my living from the shop. But like, here's what's interesting. Okay, so perfect example. Recent project I just literally finished up. If you follow me at all on Instagram or Facebook, you will see that I just completed and installed a set of a musical playground that I designed and built for Early Head Start program. Now, this is something a hobby woodworker really could have done, but they asked me to do it, and they had grant money, and I give them like a huge break. It cost them about half of what I charged them, half of what I should have, because I tried to give back to my community on at least once a year. So here's the thing. With as a legitimate business, it cost me a lot to work for them because of my liability of especially building stuff for kids. So when I get audited on my insurance, that's something that they include, that I built kids stuff, and all of a sudden my rate goes up on some of that project, and I get audited every year on my insurance. So you know, when anyway I get asked about doing this stuff and I say, well, I got to charge $50 an hour, then you know, woodworkers will think, well, I could charge $30 an hour and it'd be like all kinds of gravy for me. That number, you won't survive off of it. I mean, you literally, I think it seems like, you know, a lot of the hobby woodworkers, they'll charge in the $25 to $30 an hour range on a project is what they'll figure their time at. And that works great as a hobbyist, but you won't make a living off that at all. You're in negative cash flow at that. So, you know, for me, I have to figure my time on $50 an hour just because of my own overhead as a legitimate business.
Yeah, I was talking to the supplier that I get my hardwoods from in town, and I've only been doing this for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years at the most. And she told me that about pricing. She told me that you take what it costs you for materials and triple that, and that's what you should charge.
You'll go broke.
That doesn't sound like what you're saying.
No.
And I asked her the same question. I said, now you mean to tell me that if I buy a piece of cherry wood 10 foot long or 8 foot long for $28, and I use a foot of it to make a plaque for somebody that I normally charge $40 for or more, and if it costs me $2.80 for that foot, and I triple that, I'm making what, $6, $7, $8? There is no way that you can do that.
Even times 4 won't work.
No, not a chance. Well,
So now this is purely my opinion, but anyone that comes up and tries to give you a formula for pricing work, a set formula, is full of it. Because there's not two projects that are alike. And especially if you kind of work the whole spectrum, from doing furniture, built-ins, you know, plaque signs, whatever. I mean, there's just no way. There's no way a set formula is going to work for, hell, two separate items.
Exactly. And
I also got to base it on your market too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, completely.
I mean, some guy who's going to get $200 for Adirondack chair in downtown New York is not going to get that $200 in Alabama.
Right. I couldn't sell one for $50 in Alabama.
Exactly, yeah. Where every other guy can build it himself down there too.
You know, one of the things that definitely has helped me get more pricing is, well, I've built a good reputation over the years, but also I don't, you know, Sam Malou famously called himself a woodworker. You know, he talked about, I'm a woodworker and I'm simply a woodworker. And that's great. But for me, if I call myself a woodworker to my local clients, they want to pay me $10 an hour. If I am a contractor and a full-blown, if I put myself as I'm a full-blown contractor and cabinet shop, they treat me with as such when they write their checks. So, you know, it's funny because there is that, you got to curate your image with whoever you're targeting as well. Because woodworker tends to bring along the line of, oh, he's a woodworker, which means hobbyist, which means cheap. So I've had to fight that off over the years. And also when people say, so what are you? And I go, I'm a designer craftsman. And the clients will say, oh, designer, that means he gets charged an extra $50 an hour. And I said, yes, it does.
It's expensive.
Whatever you do, don't.
Because it simply means I design what I build. You know, is what I tell people. But I let people, you know, I'm a cabinet shop. Yeah, so your cabinet shop, yeah, you know, I'm pro shop. I keep the term woodworker out of it because it does help my bottom line.
You know, and that's you know, talking like, you know, like the $50 number you threw out there, and that's something I think kind of to keep in mind too when you look across the spectrum of skilled laborers. Go find me a plumber, go find me an electrician or a welder that their rate is $50 an hour.
All of them I know they start at 75.
Right.
At least.
And then and I'm in charge of them. I'm the least paid of the trades on the job site.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it does kind of depend. If I'm doing commercial work, I charge $65 an hour because of the way that they function, the way that I'm dealing with people, and the way that I lose money. When I'm on a residential project, and if they don't, and I know I almost always work for people that I know now or their friends. There's a direct connection. I've met people. So, and I've been working for so long. The last 3 years, all of my connections have been directly through somebody I've worked for or working for past clients. So I know that I make money on those because I have a relationship and I can move quickly and efficiently and not waste my time. But when it comes to commercial work, I just have to charge more, and it's not unheard of to charge $65 an hour. I'm still a deal at $65 an hour. So
the question is, how did you get started when it costs so much to operate, so much to get the tools that you need?
Mhm.
How did you start?
Well, I was actually kind of lucky. Number one, I did start when things cost a lot less. And even back in the day in 97 when I started, you know, even proportionally, insurance was so much cheaper and it was just so easy to get started. But when I left Costco, I did have some seed money because my Costco is where I worked before, and I had a whole bunch of sick time saved up and a bunch of vacation time saved up. So when I left, I cashed out at my current pay rate at that time, which was like $16 an hour at Costco back in 97. And I cashed out and got like $7,500. That $7,500 bought me a ratty old pickup truck with 180,000 miles on it and some cheap tools. And I started making money, and then I bought some better tools. And then I kept
Get a
making
project
money. And
Say, oh, I need this tool.
Yeah, that's what I did.
An estimate.
You know, here's the thing. Hobbyists do that, and I did that literally as a professional. You know, I just started with very little, and I just kept building. So what was nice was I did kind of hit a point where I had a lot of major tools that really helped me out a lot. And then you can quit buying tools, and at that point, it seems like you just do maintenance on them. But so yeah, that was actually where I got my seed money to start my business, because it's expensive, you know, because I had to get rid of the car and had to get a pickup truck. And, you know, I started out small and in a one-car garage, just like a lot of guys.
I've got a question for you about how you give quotes to people. So I'm more on the, I guess, hobbyist side, you could say. I, do it all under the table for friends and family, and
Sure.
And I've been getting business with larger clients, commercial stuff, building display cases and whatnot. And the hardest thing I find is giving them a quote. I don't know, do you just write out a flat rate, this is how much it's going to be, or do you give them itemized breakdown of everything? I've done both. I've had problems with the itemized breakdown where the person says, okay, your
That's
labor
none of their business.
far too much. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
way too much.
That is none of their business. I got over that a long time ago.
You got to find out what your
Braxton-
itemized list is, and you tell them how much your time is worth.
Right. So one of the problems with an itemized list, and I used to do that early on, and I had to quit. Braxton, you got a great question, and also I love your situation because you're at that point too. Well, okay, let's stick to that question first, and I want to bring something else up. I quit giving itemized lists because it's none of their business. If you go to Walmart and you pull something off the shelf, do you get to go to the manager and say, "Hey, I want to know what shipping costs in this. I want to know how much labor is in it. I want to know how much you paid to pay somebody to put this on the shelf because I think I'm paying too much for it."
And the market of grain just went down, so I need a discount.
Right. That's none of their business. The only thing that matters to them, the only thing that really they need to know is this is how much it costs for me. And then if they want to start, another contractor friend of mine, he said he was one of the people that told me stop doing that. And also he said when they want to knock the price down, say, yeah, we can take something out. Never knock down your labor. Start knocking down. Oh yeah, we can do that. We can put something cheaper in it. You don't want oak? Okay, we'll go with pine. That's fine. So.
You want to watch? It costs more.
Yeah. Don't do itemized. And also, I quit figuring. I do figure by the hour kind of, and kind of not. And here's why. My average day, really, a 10-hour day is my labor day. And I actually work more than that because I'm working on a project. There's lots of overlap. I'm working on a project, plus I'm designing another one and working on bids for other ones. So my days are fairly long. But let's say what I figure is my labor day is 10 hours long. So when I figure my time in half-day increments, basically. You want a small project, half day. Or a little bit bigger project, full day. And so I figure if I want this done, okay, it's going to be a day and a half to build it, and then I got a good half day of install, 5 hours. So I just figure full days, half days, and when I'm like at 3.5 days, I charge them for 4, and then I just give them the cost. If they're not going to hire me for 4 days, they're not going to hire me for 3.5. Really, is what it comes down to. But that's basically how I figure it. Actually, I saw what was interesting was David Picciuto put out a video on how he prices, and I was like, holy crap, that's like, it was stunning the way it was so much like the way I price. And truly, and that's, just what I kind of come up with over the years. And the pricing, your price per hour, if you say $50 an hour, that's going to change from this year to next year and the year after because everything keeps going up.
Yeah, that's good advice.
But so the other thing that I want to address is the fact that you're doing everything under the table, and I don't know how you get away with, and I'm not bashing you or anything, don't get me wrong, but there is no way I could ever work for a commercial client without handing over a lot of paperwork. So I don't know how you get away with that. Because basically, when I work for commercial clients, they need to see my insurance. They need to 1099 me, so they need all my tax info, and so I don't know how you're getting commercial projects and they're not requiring all that stuff from you.
Right. A lot of it's friends of friends and things like that. They've seen my work somewhere else, I'm straight up.
You get it.
Right off the bat, I tell them, I do this out of my garage. I'm a stay-at-home dad during the day. I work at night. So, you know, just doing this to earn a little extra money. So right off the bat, I tell them, you know, I'm not licensed or anything. I don't do any type of installations in anybody's house. I build freestanding pieces. If they don't like it, I can sell it to somebody else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because no, but good for you for getting those projects, because you're getting them just the way that I even get it as a pro. Somebody sees something and, you know, basically that's, I'm working for somebody and then their friends see it and then I'm working for them. But that's the way you get it. And, you know, the thing is too, because you're cheaper, and if businesses want to save money, they might just kind of gloss it over on their end, you know, but there's no way that, and that's why I also have to keep all my insurance and everything, because I can't work for anybody, you know. Residents, I could work for homeowners all day long. They don't care. They never look for my paperwork.
Right.
But as soon as they drop my insurance, I'd puncture a water line somewhere, and we wouldn't know it until the damage is done.
Yeah, it's definitely an aspiration of mine to do it full time, be all legal, above the board, and everything.
Yeah.
But at this point in my life, you know, with the kids, it's hard for me to find 4 or 5 hours a week even to work on stuff. So that's another thing I have to tell people. It's going to take me a while to get this done, as long as you're all right with that. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's really cool that you keep that open line of communication with them, so to manage their expectations on timeline. But I think it's really cool too that you have the aspirations to go full time. So when you're going that way, just keep in mind the numbers that are working for you now won't work for you if you go full time. Even if you're working out of your garage, your overhead goes up quite a bit when you go completely above board. And a lot of it's just going to be your liability.
Yeah.
Well, for Braxton, he's hoping to go professional. He can get those premium hot dogs for cooking out in the driveway.
Exactly. I can dream, Danny.
Another thing you got to keep in mind is when you schedule these projects, that you're not going to schedule yourself so close to each other. Otherwise, because one project can last longer, where the other one can bind right in when you're supposed to get things done for the other one, and then you're making yourself look like a fool because you're not on time.
But Brian, is the topic business cost?
It's business advice.
Okay.
If you look at the bottom right, I don't know if it shows, but it says show season 4, episode 15, business advice from Todd.
Well, let's hear from those other guys. So, you know, the thing is, you guys, I mean, are bringing up great points. I mean, Mike brought up, you know, had some great, there's 4 or 5 other guys sitting there. I'd love to hear from them too.
You know,
Yeah, talk guys.
One of the things that kind of made me, I guess, go legit or actually start an official business was kind of when I went from just kind of doing it, you know, for whoever, friends and family type thing, and then I started picking up some jobs and for me it wasn't corporate, it was nonprofits. I had a couple nonprofit organizations that approached me about some work. And, you know, when they're like, hey, just so you know, because of, you know, for their tax breaks being a nonprofit organization, they have to report every dime they spend. And so they're like, yeah, we're going to need an invoice, and start talking about all this stuff. And I was like, okay, you know, and that was kind of my wake up call for me personally, was even though this, you know, I've got a day job, I'm still in the Army, and it's just something I'm doing on the side right now. That was kind of my wake up call. Like, okay, hey, I need to start doing some research and get everything in order.
I had a similar circumstance, but not in woodworking. I used to work on laser printers way back in the day, back in the 90s. And I got a contract with a local big refinery, Chevron refinery, to do all their work. And you're talking about paperwork. I had to come up with all that kind of stuff too, to prove that I was a legitimate business at that time. Sales tax forms, everything. And invoices. I had to give them an invoice every time. So I know what you're talking about.
And no dogs at the work site.
We got a shout out for TJ's Wood Shop. I promised that I'd give him a shout out. There's another guy. There's another guy named Marl Norman. Wants to know what makes this guy such an expert, and a whole 10 people watching the show. LOL. Well, for one, I've been in business since '98. For myself, I've always worked for myself. And as far as I know, Todd, he's been working for himself as much as I have. So we're just giving a little advice that we've picked up over the years.
I think that comment itself was kind of rude, personally. I mean, space value there. And then Brian, I apologize. I don't always keep up with my feed, is why I didn't know what the topic was. But I don't think comments like that. There's always somebody like that, and it just hurts me. I mean, Todd, there's no doubt in my mind you're giving valuable advice. And
thanks.
Well, and
they can go check out my website. They'll see I'm a pro, that I function.
And this is the thing.
Prolific.
You know, someone's either going to take advice or they're not going to take advice. You know, I'll never admit that I'm an expert on anything, but, you know, if you ask a question and I pass on what I know, you know, whatever. Everyone comes up with their own thing.
I have a disclaimer on my show. This is the way I do things. Don't do it the way I do it. Take advice from a professional, because I never claimed to be one.
But even that, though, if you say the word professional, I mean, Todd, how many of your peers would you look at their work and just shake your head and never let that happen in your...
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I got a good group around me at this point.
I have had to go behind professional contractors before and fix. I mean, you know, that's, if someone's getting caught up on that, they're getting nitpicky.
My dad was in the trades. He's a carpenter and contractor, general contractor. Most of his jobs came from going in behind someone else and fixing their mistakes. The supposed pro in front of him. So,
which one of y'all stepping on a cat?
he made a good living off of fixing other people's mistakes.
And I think any of y'all that own a business or have, I think, know that different businesses have different requirements, but there is a core base to all of it, and that's probably,
oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I've done everything from flooring to computer work to woodworking. It all pretty much basically lies the same principle.
Yeah.
Yes.
It depends on what you're doing, and you got to look at what the market is. And if the market says that this goes for this amount, and you're looking at your time and your value, and it's more than what the market is going for, you have that choice of doing it for that price or not doing it. And a lot of times I just won't do it for that price.
Well, going on the topic of experts, I think if you're a good business owner, you admit to what you don't know, and you'll hire an expert to help. Because in my case, I maybe what some call an expert on a scroll saw, but sales is not my thing. So, you know, that's just one aspect I'm referring to, and that's big with business, I reckon.
I'd do a lot of consignments if I were you.
Thanks,
Have
Brian.
some other salesmen do it.
I just think some people got that knack, and some people are good all around on business. But a big part of business to make money is to get sales, and I so need a partner on that. All righty then.
I have a question, Todd. What are you an LLC, or what type of business do you operate?
Had to make sure I was unmuted there. That's a good question. Actually, I never went LLC, but I want to say this. There's advantages and disadvantages to setting up as a corporation, and I never did. But what I did to protect myself, in the state of Montana, we can file homestead. So if I get sued, they can't take my property. So my house is protected by homesteading. And I don't know that everybody can do that. Also, one other thing is, what was my other thought? Cue the music. I filed homestead, and then and in Montana, if I get sued, I can't lose my tools. They can't take my tools from me. So they can't take my home, and they can't take the way that I make my living. I'm literally legally protected that way. I found this out by taking some small business classes and consulting with lawyers locally. So one of the big benefits, I'll be honest with you, and I don't want to, I should be giving any legal or tax advice at all. But one of the big things when the recession hit and things got really freaking bad, if you are a corporation, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to pay your quarterly taxes. Mm-hmm. And as a DBA, you can slide by without paying quarterly taxes. You can pay a fine at the end of the year, but you don't get hit quite the same way. So I've taken advantage of being a DBA, but also I have myself set up with some protection, and legally in Montana, the way that I'm set up, here's what's going to happen too. If I really got sued, even if my house is protected and my tools are protected, so they can't take away my living and they can't take away my house, what's really going to put any of us under probably is legal fees. You know what I mean? So even if I'm set up as an LLC and I have that firewall protection from being sued, then what's really going to put any of us under probably is heavy legal fees, depending on how bad they go after you. Good. So, and then also, if you structure yourself, when you set up any corporations, you got to, on a personal level, you have to make sure that you are very strict about your company bank accounts are never ever used for personal stuff, because if they go to sue you and your LLC, your corporation will crumble if you don't keep it strictly, seriously separated from your personal habits.
Exactly.
I can say that I'm probably just as fine the way that I am as anybody else. And, I've been at it for 19 years now. That's the way I've functioned. And there was a certain level I've talked with my accountant about going LLC or going, S Corp or something. S Corp, yeah. And we've talked about that, but, I've hit those thresholds where I was close to it. And I'm just like, I'm just not going to do it right now. And then it was just fine that I didn't. So, I still get all that, probably the one big thing though, if you go LLC or S Corp, if you go corporation, okay, if you donate something to a fundraiser, then you get to deduct your time and the materials, but you have to pay yourself. The corporation has to pay you. The business has to pay you as an employee in order to deduct the time. For me as a DBA, if I donate, and I donate stuff, I can only donate and take the deduction of materials. I can't take the deduction of my time. So that's one thing. There's like a quick one that might affect you right away that you would see.
Oh yeah, Todd, we also forgot to mention, talking about legalities, you have to get a lawyer when you do a business.
If you
yes, there's a lot of things that you think is all right, and they say, you're doing it wrong.
That's as a corporation, right? Not as a sole proprietorship.
Sole proprietor too.
I never did that.
Because there's a lot of things that you can get in trouble for if you do.
Whenever I see paperwork, I fill out. They'll want to ask what I am. And you can still get your tax number separate from, you can get a business tax number that's separate from your social security number. So even as a DBA or a sole proprietor. So, but any of the business paperwork, when I fill it out, if I'm working for somebody, it says, the box will either say DBA and want to know the name, or it'll say check your sole proprietor, or corporation. Well, that's what I run under, is sole proprietor or DBA. Is what you'll see on the paperwork.
Yeah, and that's, I would just kind of second what Brian say. With anyone here, I would definitely consult a tax expert and a lawyer.
Yes.
For your case, because for one, every location is so different
Yeah.
And there's,
Yeah.
I mean, down to the county, your county can have certain business rules and stuff like that that might be in addition to the state. So,
You know, a good place to pick up on free legal advice, you know, for your area is I took some classes from the Small Business Administration. They were free, and there's even other classes that the Small Business Administration has for local small businesses like us. And they might cost literally just a few bucks, like $50 or $100 or something, to take a series of classes. But what's going to happen is they'll usually do a series of classes that focus on different elements of your business. And almost always one of those will have a lawyers in and talk about how you should, you know, the different types of business structures and how they may or may not work for you. And at that point, you get to ask lots of questions and not get charged for it. So, and a lot of times, even what the classes I've been to, they'll have a couple different lawyers that specialize in a few different business structures, and they hang around, and you get to ask a lot of questions personally. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about doing, and you ought to check out.
yeah, I know personally for me, like, you know, and with just no experience in starting a business, I thought I had to get an LLC, and I'm, you know, all these different, you know, $500 to start an LLC, and I'm just kind of started getting a little overwhelmed at first. But luckily, I had a friend of mine who's a lawyer who's also a small business owner on the side too, that I talked to him and stuff like that. Where, you know, and I'm kind of on the same boat. I'm you know, operating for tax purposes as a sole proprietor, and then with the DBA, you know, for my business name. But here in North Carolina, I didn't even have to get the DBA until I opened a business checking account. Taxes, no one cared that I was operating as Mertzke Custom Woodworking until I went to go get a business checking account.
Yeah.
Right, and at that point, you'll have
And
to
you
show
got to
them a
get a
business
sales
license.
permit.
The banks. The banks are all about having the taxes.
Yeah, 'cause North Carolina doesn't have business licenses for, like, for woodworking or any of that stuff like that. Does not require any more business license. So literally, you know, I had been operating for, you know, a couple of years when I decided, okay, hey, I need to split the finances between personal and business. And they're like, yeah, we need a DBA.
Yeah, my bank in Texas told me the same thing a few years ago. I never did do it.
Okay. Hey, Charles, is that guy still in there?
He appears to be. He did a grinning smiley face after you said you blocked him. Can we say his name publicly to get everybody to slam his butt?
Well, I'm not into that. All I did is I blocked him from my channel, so I don't see no more of him. So,
Hey, can I add a piece of advice if you're looking to get started as a contractor, cabinet maker, installer, whatever you want to do? Want the business? Return the phone calls. I mean, I've been in my house
phone calls
14 years, and it took me 10 of those 14 years to find a handyman I can count on, a plumber I can count on, an electrician I can count on. Return your damn phone calls. Even if you don't get the job, at least the guy knows you've responded. So, and
Right.
they call you back again later. Who knows? But,
You know, you make a great point, and there's a series. I have a few basic principles or rules that I call everything I needed to know about contracting I learned in kindergarten. And it's number one, return phone calls. Number two, show up on time. If you can't show up on time, give them a call and let them know you're going to be late. And clean up after yourself. And if you do severely average work, but you do those very few things, they will think you are the best, literally.
And tell the truth.
Yeah.
yeah.
It probably goes without saying, and I haven't been able to hear every word of the show so far, but show respect even when you're not at your job, because it reflects on your job. And online, as an example, if you're watching a show and being a butt nugget in the comments, then that reflects on you. And I'm putting it G-rated here, but
Okay, Charles, enough of that guy.
I'm talking in general here. I mean,
but you know what? Charles does bring up a great point, because
how you treat people.
When you've got your truck and on the back windshield of your truck in huge print says Merski Custom Woodworking,
Right.
you might cut off a potential client.
Yeah.
Not that I would ever do that, just for the record.
Yeah,
I got a question for you, Todd. Now, I've had a couple of these come up in my time. You get a client, you agree on a price, you get the job done. When it comes to collecting the rest of the money, they don't seem to be satisfied, and they don't want to pay you. How do you deal with that?
Well,
big club.
Yeah. It's tough because you do end up, you know, of all the contractors around me, we've had to deal with it at some point, and everybody's got their own opinion on it. And basically, for me, I have run into it a couple times, and I just had to determine, you know what, I can either drag this into court and it can eat me alive, eat more of my time, and make me lose more, or I can just freaking walk away and recover as fast as possible. And I chose to walk away and recover as fast as possible, because the legal fees to take somebody to court, even small claims court, everything starts adding up too fast, and I just lose more. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm out $300. I'm out $500. I'm done with these people. I just got to cut myself off. So,
have you ever had to put a lien on a house?
Well, that actually is one of the options that I have as a full registered contractor with a contract with somebody. Yes, I could do that. Now, if you don't have a good contract with somebody, then you're not going to be able to get away with that. But there was one situation where I was out $500 and I just walked away from it. I'm like, I don't want to it'll literally make yourself sick. Even back then, when I only had to charge $35 an hour years and years ago, you know, $500, you'll add that up quicker in wasting your time trying to chase the money down than just letting it go.
Have you ever taken what you built out and take it with you?
Todd, I have a question.
Yeah.
We had a business years back before we sold Computer Corporation, and what I did under the advice of my accountant is I went for a full Class A corporation, and then from there we applied for Subchapter S, and that there worked out splendid. I didn't have to.
Oh, did it?
I did my quarterlies like normal.
Okay.
He worked. I know you probably don't know Massachusetts, but he used to work for Joe Danuti, the boxer, who was our state treasurer.
Okay. It sounds like I'm somebody in the mob.
I don't know. Danucci, he was he was a fighter. Jack Dempsey, but seriously, my accountant is a forensic accountant, and he's the one that advised me, because I hear a lot of the DBAs and LLCs, which I really not familiar with LLCs, but we ended up going that way, and we go with an 04 number instead of you don't use a social, you have a company 04. Except for your sales tax license, which you have to pay to, the state.
Yep.
Unlike Virginia and other areas, I know you guys may be from Virginia. When they go down to Alexandria, if we go out to eat in a certain county, we have to pay a meal tax, a state meal tax, plus we have to pay a county tax. And it's kind of screwed up. But then at my age, if I lived in Alexandria and had a house, it wouldn't cost me anything for taxes, because I'm too old and my income level is way below. I'm disabled. I spend a lot of time in a chair, you may say. The nest. it's good to see everybody. I'm been on here at a dog's age, as Brian knows, but keeping busy, keeping alive, that's what counts.
Yep. So are you saying then that that's similar? Is that like an S corp?
I'm not too sure on that one. It was a regular, full corporation.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a friend that was an attorney, friend's wife, and we had it done for the cost of the books and all that, which was like $600. Now we're going back 15 years. I guesstimate, as I posted, there's probably around $1,000. Now the biggest thing is the book. Sitting around, it's like by everyone's purchased a house. Knows you spend 2 hours signing your friggin' name, and by the time you're done, you forget how to write your name.
Yep.
You do it so much. I mean, this is what it is. It's a big book, and you have your corporate sale for stamping paperwork. Supposedly, just a fancy piece of crap to make it look good. You'll have a company sale. We were Bellingham Computer Incorporated. But that's another way to go. I don't know today what's going on myself. What I do is anything I do, we call down south. Way deep in the left-hand pocket, and that's where it stays. We don't, I'm on a fixed income. I live in government housing for seniors and disabled. My wife's older than hell. She's almost 70. Oops. I hope you're not in there. I can say anything quiet here. It's a one-bedroom studio.
She's going to ask you to build her a stick to beat you with.
And she puts up with a lot from me, as Brian well knows.
Yeah, I think basically, like I said, for me, by not going to a corporation, when the recession hit and the wheels really fell off the wagon, there was a time there where basically I just quit paying quarterlies, and I paid the fine at the end of the year, and I paid my taxes. But the thing was, I didn't have hardly any taxes to pay because I wasn't making any money. It wasn't any work. And so it was a little bit, I think it was a little bit easier to slide on that than if I was a corporation. Now, a buddy of mine that is a corporation, and he kept writing himself checks, and he had to pay taxes on it, but he couldn't cash the checks. He couldn't pay himself.
Right. In corporations, a full Class A, you pay $456 a year to the government because you're a corporation. And I asked my friend John, I said, now, how'd they come up with that number, 456? He said, that's about it. They decided, I like that number, 456. That's how much you'll be a year, and it has been ever since. But it gives you a lot more protection because I mean, they couldn't even sue me for my damn underwear. I mean, with a Class A. They couldn't get anything out of me because it's not me, it's the corporation. The corporation is broken. I'm a millionaire. Oh, so be it. It's your problem.
By the way, Henry, I haven't seen you on here in so long. It's good to see you there. But Todd, I wanted to ask you, I know a lot of us, whether it be public business or anything, learn things the hard way. Are there any hard lessons you learned trying to run a business that fit you in the booty?
I think one of the first things you need to do is really understand your numbers, because at that point you'll be able to charge properly. And I think that was always one of the toughest things, especially earlier on. And the thing is, what the number that it takes to succeed, to survive as a business continually, that's a moving target. Because, and it's like I said, especially taxes and insurance go up every year. And so you've got to keep adjusting those numbers. But, people beat me up on my numbers, but the fact is, if you don't, some people say you're too expensive or that's outrageous. Well, it's because they don't know the numbers. They haven't run the numbers. They haven't tried to live off that number and get a good understanding of what your numbers are as fast as possible, because then you'll be able to charge appropriately and actually make a living.
What would you say is the hardest part of running a business, or that's been the hardest for you? For me, it is judging how long something will take. I never guess correctly.
that definitely goes hand in hand with trying to learn how to charge and understanding what your time's worth. You also have to understand how long it takes to do something. So one of the things that's definitely a good idea is you should be keeping a log anyways of how you spend your time. And so when you go back and you review and you get your final check, start breaking down. Sit down for 30 minutes and have a coffee and go over, well, I spent this much time doing this. I thought it would take this long, and readjust that and make a notation of it. And then you can go back. It doesn't have to be super detailed, and it can be super detailed if you want. You can break it down to, I had this much time in milling, this much time in design, this much time in installation, this much time in one thing that people always miss is what do you call it? Administrative. Because every job's going to have a certain amount of administrative time. Are you chasing butterflies there, Brian?
Oh, the wife, she's asking me questions.
So, but anyways, you'll start getting a grasp on how long it takes you to do something accurately. And it is tough for me, especially because I remodel. I always have to have contingencies built into the number. Hey, if this goes okay, it'll be this much. But when we tear this open, we might run into this. And maybe you're not remodeling and you're just doing built-ins, let's say. But when you go to do the built-ins, you might run into surprises too. So if you're doing production out of the shop, doing smaller production out of the shop, you're probably going to be able to figure out your time investment for doing a small production runs. It's going to be more controlled. So you should be able to nail down your times pretty effectively if you're working strictly from the shop. But the things that people miss typically are the amount of time it takes to pick up something, the amount of time it takes to deal with clients. That kind of falls under the admin and design part. And then also driving around time, back and forth to the clients. And they'll usually miss how many trips they'll be making too.
Well,
So,
I know every one of us as humans can relate to life getting in the way. That's the drawback to owning a business, is you can't let life get in the way. And I'm finding out the hard way on that one, big time.
Yep.
Exactly.
yeah,
You
make a good point.
One of my biggest falls, Todd, was when I was laying carpet, for instance. I'd have a lot of good months that I was busier than all get out. And then there's a few months like towards Christmas and whatnot, when you couldn't even do a restretch in a room. I mean, it was really slow.
Yep.
How do you adjust for that? Or do you?
Definitely. I quit Costco back in '97. I very quickly found out the value of $1 and came to realize the full value of $1. Because I didn't know where that next dollar was coming from. So all of a sudden I have a whole different perspective on the money. And I can make really good money during the summer, but man, I can't go out and spend it on a wave runner or a four-wheeler or something fun. I definitely have to put it away. I get ahead on my bills. One of the things I do is actually going into winter, I usually pump up my accounts for like my dumpster, my cell phone, even electrical. I'll start plugging extra money into those accounts. I get to deduct those checks that I write this year. And what happens is I do the same thing again next year. But I try to get myself kind of pumped up so I know that those bills are paid. So when I hit January, February, and March, if I literally only do $800 worth of business, I know the bills are already paid, or I can pay my bills. So.
Well, also, I had suppliers that I had accounts with, and usually I'd go in and I'd pay them right after I get done with the job.
I pay as I go, definitely.
And if you don't do that, it's going to end up biting you in the butt, because you go in to get your supplies for the next job, and they're like, well, where's my money? I don't know.
Well,
they're going to let you get the supplies you need.
I'm glad you said that, because, when the recession hit, I wasn't extended very far with my materials, with my suppliers, but I quit using the 30 days net, where you get the monthly billing, and then I got away from that. I still have all my accounts, so I get my contractor discount, but the fact is I pay as I go, and I charge for all the material on the front end, everything. If I get cut out, all materials are definitely paid for, plus some labor.
But I know starting out, that's the way I had to do it. And there's a couple of times, like I said, your timing and your scheduling is all the gold in the world, I should say. Is because if you're running into 2 jobs, and you ain't paid for that one job, then how can you get materials for the next job? And it was just a kind of a pain to get started. But once you got business coming in, you always plan on not having that work in the winter. So you always pay up. But yeah,
that's what I'm kind of going with it. I just try to stay on top of everything, get ahead on some stuff. And it's funny because, man, you have like big checks coming in during the summer, when things are heavy. The thing is, here's actually, it's not the weather that slows my business down. It's Christmas, because people aren't, now for you guys, if you guys are making stuff out of the shop, the months right preceding Christmas immediately, those are going to be the months that you got to be busting it out, because it's got to be available for sale for Christmas. For me, nobody wants to remodel during Christmas. And then right after that, they've blown their money and they don't want to remodel during tax season. So tax season is the killer. It doesn't have anything to do with the weather. It has everything to do with they're spending their money on Christmas and they're spending their money on taxes. They want to know, how much money am I getting back, or do I have to pay before they spend any money on their house?
During Christmas time, build birdhouses and go to craft fairs.
Yeah.
Well, back then I wasn't doing woodworking. I was doing flooring.
Oh, so you started from the floor up, huh?
Oh, yeah. I've done it all. But yeah, I know flooring has nothing to do with woodworking or how things go, but business is business. And
that's right.
It all interacts with others, Now, a person to ask, is he's being real quiet, is Jerry. He's running these craft fairs and farmers markets, whatever. And he's constantly pushing out the product. How do you do it, Jerry?
I'm certifiable. Really, it's interesting to see people like this that are more professional. And I'm not really a hobbyist, but I'm doing a level that's low enough to keep me under the tax man's radar. Usually when I tell them how much I make, they laugh at me and say, "Why are you even bothering calling me?" So, but I have the full-time job, and this is to help my uncle do something during the day. So he does the shows during the week, and I help on the weekends, but we just constantly make whatever. And the summer's been particularly lovely with the heat and the fact that so many different street fairs and farmers markets are popping up. There's just no interest. So hardly anybody shows up. But it's good because I build up inventory.
Now, besides your job aside, okay, are you making enough money to keep your craft fairs going with the products that you sell?
I have, yeah. Even at, I did do one show that was almost $300 to get in, and we didn't sell $1 product.
Wow.
So, but there have been some very good shows, and the only thing I keep telling my uncle is it waters down once you look at the whole sheet for the whole 6-month period, and it's a plus, so that's good enough for me.
Have you ever considered doing consignment charges for Charles?
There is, or I should say, there was a couple of people that asked me to possibly sell some of their stuff. But these farmers markets really want the actual designer and builder to be there.
Yeah, that makes sense because of the they have questions, and yeah, there's a lot of good reasons for that. But what Jerry was saying about spending so much on a booth and then not getting any sales to make it up, that's why I stopped doing shows. back when I was able to.
Okay. Now, have you done any consignments where you put your product in a store to sell?
Yes, I did. And for those that don't know, they ask why I charge so much. It's because of a lot of the stores I was in says I wasn't charging enough. So that's where I got my price range from and my starting price.
Okay.
I was in some for a while. Every now and then, that's seasonal too, because what I do is mainly wall art, and it's seasonal and it's a very small niche. But I'll let you get back to it.
How about you, Jerry? Have you ever done any consignments?
The problem with consignments is you have to have enough product to actually put in a store. And since I do so many shows, I have to have product for the shows too.
Right.
And that's a lot of upfront money for a questionable effort. So I didn't do it. I passed on that one.
How about you, Shannon? Have you ever done any consignments?
Sorry, I was shoving chips in my face there. It was dinner time. I'm multitasking like Braxton. Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do both consignment and craft show at the moment. Well, the Denton Farmers Market anyway. The consignment, though, that we have is a small, maybe a 2-foot by 3-foot section in a store, a couple of shelves. It's not a huge amount. And actually what we do periodically is go up and rotate the items that just aren't selling. If they're sitting for a while, then they come out and we take them to market.
That's smart.
And so we never leave any. Well, I gotta be careful how I say that, because I'll swap cutting boards out, or we'll swap pens out, or something like that along the way. But the market is really right now, like Jerry was saying, is weird, because you never know from one week to the next what's a hit, what's a miss. And this is our first full year of doing a farmer's market, and it's been great. It's a little weird every once in a while that one week you almost sell out of something. You think, oh crap, this is popular. I've got to go home and make 3,000 more of these things, and you go back next week and you leave with somehow 3,001 because you don't know where the other one came from. You can't give things away the second week, and so it's an interesting and confusing and frustrating yet awesome outfit to be part of. And so the thing is, though, you gotta stay consistent. Like Jerry says too, during the summer months, the sales dropped. It's 105 degrees. No one's coming out to look at.
Yeah, I don't get out of my
they're
house.
not browsing. We're technically a farmers market with a handcrafted community attached, and so they're getting out of the car long enough to buy mushrooms and green beans and corn, and then they're out of there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to say, hey, here's something to cut your things on. Hey, come back. Not so much. But the gal we sit next to every week, we paid. You pay a little more. Well, you don't technically pay a little more. You pay in advance for half the season, and you can get, for Denton anyway, you can get what's known as a permanent vendor booth. So you're in the same spot every week instead of being rotated around into whatever hole they could fit you in. And we opted to do that because for us it made sense that we want to be able to say from week to week, we know where we're going to be, and here, come by. And so, Facebook and Instagramming, all that kind of stuff, you can say these things. And the gal that sits next to us has been with the Denton Community Market now for the last 7 years. It's their 7th season. And she says the same thing. Spring is great. From the time the market opens, for us it's April through November. So from the time the market opens in April up through Mother's Day, crazy. Can't keep stuff. I couldn't keep cutting boards. I thought, man, this is sweet. Where's this been all my life? After Mother's Day, it slowed up. And then Father's Day, it dried up after Father's Day. I mean, we have a running joke. We made booth. It's been our running joke for a lot of years at different craft shows. Well, that's what we were doing this summer. We're like, yeah, well, we made booth, so hey. But it's showing signs of life now that Labor Day's over, which is exactly what she said. She said you will see business pick up after everybody gets back from summer vacations, everybody gets back into their school routines, and starts planning for Christmas. And so here we are.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I just wanted to, you and Jerry both doing shows. You already brought up one good point, but the other good point is that consistently being at the shows, even if people ignore you the first 3 years, and they see that next year you might have a new customer there. I mean, it can creep up on you. I used to do shows all the time, but people just get used to seeing you, and then that's where the interest generates sometimes if they're open-minded. In my case.
Yeah, and it's picked up, and everybody says it should continue to pick up to where we go out at the end of November like crazy. And so I'm looking forward to that. I really am. But one of the things too has been interesting, you know, and it's being there. And I don't know how much Jerry's seen from that as well, but just that consistency. You get the same people, especially if they bought something from you, they'll come by the week after or 2 weeks later, and hey, it's doing great. Hopefully that's what they're saying. If they come up and tell you your thing fell apart, that's not so good. But I've actually had 2 different people bring a friend a couple of weeks later because they bought a board or something, and they'll bring their friend and say, this is where I got that from. And they'll, oh my gosh, it's a, and then they buy one. I'm like, that's sweet. And I've had that happen twice. And then with the same people, that second friend brought a friend as well. And so between that and business cards, and you never know, especially from the craft standpoint. I mean, I can't speak for Todd and the cabinetry part of it, but I'm sure there's still a little of that as well. Is that the sticking with it is probably the key thing, you know, no matter what you're doing, as long as you can, because that break potentially is always going to be right around the corner. And so who knows what's going to happen come Christmas time. Just because of cards and word of mouth and things like that. Or it could be nothing. Who knows?
You know, but, you brought up a good point. Actually, what you're saying makes a great point, because one of the things that I tell guys is the secret to success is also time. It takes time. And what you're describing is you're building a reputation with the people that you've served, and then their friends see it. And that's literally how I still get all my business.
Repeated customers.
Yeah. I mean, advertisements, you know, was it you advertise on Facebook for $5 or something like that? I don't know. I haven't done it. But the any time, and it's funny too, because I've got a lot of friends, no matter what it is, woodworking. If something comes up, somebody needs something done woodworking, my name gets tagged in it. I'm like, no, I don't want to go out in the middle of summer and build fences. What's wrong with you? No. I'm in my shop under the fans. I'm not doing that. No, I don't want to. But you know, when you're, I don't know. For me, customer service is a huge thing. It is the thing for me. I go to a restaurant and my order gets screwed up. You know, it's going to happen. There's human beings working the kitchen, and so. But if I say, hey, my thing is not, can we do this? Sure. If you tell me sure, you tell me great, I'm sorry, whatever, boom, go handle it. I got no problem. You won't hear another peep out of me about it. But it's when somebody wants to argue or, you know. So for me, that same standpoint as applying to the customers. You know, I'll set a price on something. And so, you know, it's X number of dollars for a cutting board. And I've had a couple of people, not very many, believe it or not. I've had a few people say, well, would you take this for it? And in my head, I'm already going, yeah, I mean, I can do that. Because I'm already thinking, and not that it's like $5 difference, you know. And so they're not trying to flea market me, but I'll give you $2 for this 15-foot cutting. No, it's not going to happen. But, you know, they'll throw $5 less at me. I've got that padded into the price. You know, I mean, I've I figured out, and it's not through really any specific formula. I just look at it and go, I'd pay that for it, and there it is. And my wife is always showing me stuff on like Pinterest, almost the same board I built, and it's 3 times as much. And I'm thinking, I can't sleep at night at that price. I'm sorry. I can't stand there and look a customer in the eye and say, yes, that's what that costs. I can't do it. But at the same time, great for them. So, you know, it's figuring that out, but then you've got that little bit of wiggle room. Because to me, there is some of that in customer service. And like you were saying earlier, like I was mentioning earlier, you know, okay, if the price gets too crazy, too different, okay, well, you want it made out of something cheaper, I can do that too. You know, you want a cutting board made of pine? I got you. I've got some 2x4s. We'll make you one. But that's not going to be what you want. You know, that's not where you want to invest. And so it's one of the things that, for me, is important, because it's like, okay, a cutting board. Ooh. You know, everybody and their uncle made a cutting board in high school in woodshop class when they had those things. And so, you know, you've got grandmas with 75-year-old cutting boards shaped like a pig sitting on the table. And that's great. That's an investment. And that's what I tell people. That you're investing in that chunk of wood that's glued together. You got sticks. Ooh, I'm not building fine furniture or big houses. I'm gluing some sticks together, and I'm charging you a lot for it. So, yay for me. But that's the thing is trying to. Here comes the train. So it's customer service.
You know, one of the things when we think about waffling on the price is you got to think about, guess what? Does the electric company ever give me a break on my electric bill? Company give me a break on the gas to heat my shop in the winter, or when I go to fuel up my van? Nobody gives me a break. Nobody gives me a break when I go to buy materials for projects that I donate either. I have enough crap in my shop, as you can see back here. I usually try to burn something up anyways on that. But the point is, you know, nobody's given us a break, and we get too emotionally involved with it, and we have to understand nobody's given us a break, even if we've donated a bunch of stuff and helped a bunch of great organizations or helped somebody that had to have a cancer surgery and there was a fundraiser. The fact that we helped them, the electric company, the gas company, they're not going to give us a break on our operating costs of our shop.
Yeah, and that's,
if you want to be able to
say, a few dollars is one thing, but, you know, trying to lowball me, no.
Yeah. So it's like, you know what? The way that we can give back is only if we make some money. I enjoy giving back to my community, but also in order to be able to do that, I have to make money, or I can't give back. And then I'm just working for freaking free all the time because everybody wants something cheap and free.
You know what? You just tell them, yeah, I'll take $25 for that, but you got to fill up my truck with some gas.
Yeah.
Well, they say I'll give you $50. I said, no, I don't need the $50. I'm selling this thing over here for $100, but I appreciate it. You know, it's just, you wouldn't go into a Walmart and say, I'll give you $5 for this $10 item. So why do it to somebody at a show? It's not a garage sale.
Right.
Sorry, that's just how I feel.
No, and that's true. But as businessmen and women or whatever, we need to also remember that we need to make sure that the persona that we're out there is that we're not the garage sale, that we're, you know, conducting ourselves as a business. And I think sometimes people have a hard time kind of sticking to that line. I mean, I've had it before where, you know, customers didn't want to pay, you know, what I quoted them at. And I joke with if it's family or friends, you know, and I usually pull the, well, you probably can't afford me joke out with them. But with other clients, it just, you know, you just kind of stick to your gun and not emotional about it. It is what it is. That's the price.
Yep.
And I don't even go down the road of you know, negotiations unless, you know, kind of like you said, Todd, you know, okay, hey, let's look at some different material.
Yeah, actually, that's the thing is, don't give them the option of making you cheaper. give them the option of making it cheaper by cutting out quality item, material, changing the materials, because they don't want to do that. It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we can do that. Well, we don't have to spend this much money on it. We can buy this instead, and you can make it out of that instead. And it's like it just blocks them out and doesn't make your labor the option.
With clients like that, the question I found that works the best for me, and the simplest thing, and I don't know why it took me so long to learn this, is when you start getting a client where you're getting that feeling that, money might be a little bit of an issue, it's just straight up. And now I go do a lot faster nowadays. What's your budget for this project?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to be afraid to ask what their budget was because, number one, it felt like I was being nosy, and number two, I thought they might think I was going to gauge my price based on their income. And inside, I was a little desperate at the time for the sale, but I didn't want that to show. But, that's the mindset I go through when I think of things like that.
That's part of the risk. I know the handyman we use on the house all the time, the stuff I can't physically do myself. Him and I have talked at great length that 2 towns over from us, he charges 50% more per hour than he charges me, because he knows that town can afford it. So
I kind of do that too.
Yeah, you got to go with your market.
Yeah.
With a town called Wellesley, and it's the most wealthy town in Massachusetts. They can afford it.
You know what? It's not just that they can afford it. It costs me more to work on their house. My
Exactly.
liability in risk is higher. If a ladder falls over and knocks out one of their windows, it's going to cost more to replace it. If they're wealthy and they got a fancy, expensive house, it costs more to replace that window than it does in a different end of town.
Absolutely.
So the fact is, it's not just about they have the money, so I'm going to gouge them. The fact is, the risk goes up. If I can go to Home Depot and buy a vinyl window off the shelf and replace it, compared to buying a Marvin window for 10 times the price,
there's made window.
Yeah, there's my difference. So, and I know that doesn't necessarily go toward, so it's not just the fact that they can afford it. The fact is what they have makes my risk higher.
That town, yeah, they can afford it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Hey guys, we got a rainstorm rolling in. I got to go batten down the hatches and pull the patio furniture in. So I got to bail out. Before I go, I want to thank you boys from Texas for sending the football team up here for my 3rd string junior league quarterback and take him out.
Good luck.
Good luck. The damage is done. 27-0. Come on, man.
Oh, really?
Last night, it was a piece of cake.
Well, anyway.
The sad part is he's now injured. We're down all 3 quarterbacks. So,
anyway, this has been a good topic for tonight. We could possibly pick it up at a later date. I want to thank you, Todd, for being my guest host tonight.
Hey, I enjoyed the party. I'm so glad there were so many other guys too.
And my buddies on the panel, you know what I think of y'all. And I want to thank our viewers for watching this show. I extended the contest for the 2x4 challenge and the birdhouse challenge till October 15th. You got until 11:59 p.m. on Pacific to have all your video links submitted to me at summerswoodworking@gmail.com. Next week, we're going to be talking about our favorite clamps and what we can do with them. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys then. Have a good night.
Night, guys.
See ya.